Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Rant Class. So I have been asked to do more history on my podcast, and I thought sure. And I want to start about why I find history fascinating and why it has a big impact on my life. So back in World War II, my great-grandparents was part of a resistance cell called Hvidstens. It was formed in 1943 in the city of Hvidstens. And Johan, the mechanic, is my great-granddad. And what the group did were they took care of the drops, weapons and special agents sent from England. And they used the inn that was owned by the Phils, who were a major part of the resistance group, since everyone basically took part of it. And they stored most stuff there. And I have been told stories while my great-grandmother Rimor was still living about the times she had to dry parachutes in the living room so they were able to be packed away and stuff like that. But back to the group. In March of 1943, they were formed and they did work for about a year, where they actually had a massive success rate. They got 7 agents in land and over 50 containers with supplies and weapons in them. Sadly, in December of 1943, 2 of the agents were rounded up by the Gestapo and arrested. And they were unable to take the cyanide pills they had with them. So they were taken and tortured for a time. And after the torture ended, they had sadly given up the names of all of the members in the group. So on the 11th of March 44, they all got rounded up except 3 of them, who were able to be warned and get away. The remaining 12 members were taken to the Gestapo headquarters in Aarhus, where they were interrogated and then dropped off in a prison. A week after, the Gestapo have sadly found 5 more members and arrested them. In the end of March 1944, the Gestapo divided up the members, so all the men were taken to one camp and the women were kept in Aarhus until the end of May, where they were taken to a prison in Copenhagen. In April of 44, another group tried to make an action and it failed. And it made the German make the law harder on the Danish resistance groups. So because of that, the resistance member no longer had any privacy. They couldn't get mail, they couldn't get visitors, they couldn't talk to the other members at all. In the middle of May, all the male members were taken to the same prison that the women were in. And they were kept there for some time until the 26th of June. They were then taken to the German court, where they had declared martial law, and the day after this all began, they got their sentence. 8 of them got the death sentence. 3 of them, who started by getting the death sentence, had it changed to life in jail, alongside 2 other members. 2 members got 4 years, and 1 of them got 2 years in jail. Around midnight at the 29th of June, the 8 men were told that they were about to get shot. They will be shot at 4 in the morning. So on the 30th of June 1944, they were shot. Among them, my great-granddad. The living members who were left were sent to prisons in Germany. My great-grandmother saw the agent who had been tortured when she went to see Johan in prison. And the agent had been giving such a beating that she said she forgave him for telling on them, since no man would have been able to withstand that and hold. She actually said his face were no longer round, it was square due to how swollen it was, and he had no teeth, he was just beaten to a pulp. And when I was told stuff like that and found out about this, it made me look into history. And If you ever get to Denmark and you get to the city of Hvidstens, it's a small city. You can actually see the grave that was made for the 8 who were shot. After the war, they were taken to Hvidstens and given a grave together and a gravestone. And it's about 100 meters from where the inn is, and the inn is still active to this day. And I will say I do feel proud knowing this about my family. But most have something to be proud of. But as a kid, I often got sad when people talked about Hvidstensgruppen. And they never mentioned my great-granddad. They almost always only talked about the Phils who owned the inn. And I do understand it, because in that family, everyone were in the group. But we do remember all of them. They all played a part, all had a life, all had families that were affected by this. So I'm not trying to say Joanne, the mechanic, was more important than the rest of them. But he is family to me and very important to me. But all of them are important according to history. And we need to remember them equally. We need to remember all of the history, not just some of it. I do wish that my great-grandmother Rimor had been more healthy when I was a kid. But sadly, she got to a point where she was not even able to remember her own kids anymore. And I'm sadly too young at that point to remember most of her stories, because I would have loved to have the time to actually just sit and listen to her talk about what they did and how they did it. So remember to spend time with people around you, and you can and listen to people, and you might learn something you didn't know, something that actually sparks something inside of you. I hope this episode has been interesting. It has been kind of weird for me to talk about it, since we grow up being told that it's not good looking for us to actually talk about how great we are, how amazing we are. In Denmark and Sweden, and I believe Norway as well, we have something called the law of Jante, and it basically means that it's bad to brag about yourself. But I do really think that these men and women did something truly amazing, and I'm not sure that if I was put in their shoes that I would have dared to do it myself, to do the same. And it took amazing bravery and guts to do what they did. So I hope that you'll join me on my social sites. I would really appreciate it. And you can find me on Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, YouTube. You can find the podcast on all streaming sites. And you just have to search for Rand Class, and then I will be there. So I hope you all have a very good day.